Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. All right, we are here with Carleton University's Stephanie Carvin. There is so much going on right now,
Oh my
but
God.
there's a few national security things that are kind of floating in the ether that I figure we should probably at least have a quick conversation about. Starting with China, we've signed this strategic partnership. I'm wondering if there's any particular security dynamics that you think we're not hearing about, or that we should be, eyes wide open about.
So, eyes wide open. It's always the way with China, isn't it? So I think that there's a couple of things we need to consider. My bottom line here, so bottom line up front, which is the best way to always talk about security, is the pivot to China is always a circle, right? The pivot to
Yeah,
China is always a circle. So it's like, I keep telling television networks that in 2 years, I will probably be on their TV networks talking about new tariffs on canola
yeah,
targeting Canada, right? And this is something that we just, it's like Lucy in the football,
yeah,
that we absolutely will, we for some reason we always just seem to be Charlie Brown running at the football, and then the football's taken away and we land on our heads, and that is Canada and canola and China, like in a nutshell. So,
yeah,
is it good that we are stabilizing relations with China? 100% yes. They are a large country. They are what, like a sixth, a seventh of the world's population. Like you can't just ignore that.
yeah,
Even if, forget Trump, like even in good times, you want to have stable relations with the superpower. No question about that. Good thing to do.
yeah,
But we should be really, really aware of the fact that this is the stability is often an illusion, and that while I welcome it, we should not really, we should just look at what's happening right now in the Indo-Pacific.
yeah,
You have Japan. They just said, "Hey, Taiwan is important for the security of the region," and China just completely lost it and has been nonstop targeting Japan, no longer allowing Chinese tourists to go to Japan, trying to hurt them every way they can economically. And yeah, that's one of the things they're doing. I believe they're recently targeting Korea. They've been acting increasingly aggressively militarily against Taiwan. All of this in a backdrop of some really weird stuff happening in the Chinese military right now. There's been a
yes,
lot of
yes. There's a big purge going on, from what I hear.
everyone loves a military purge with no explanation. Just everyone loves that. Just great for and of concern is one of the people being purged is one of the few people to actually have decent relations with the West, right? So
Yeah,
not great. So all of this is happening, and this is literally the backdrop to Carney's visit to China. Like this is
yeah,
happening right now. Now, where do I think Carney got it right? Again, stabilizing the relationship, important. He didn't visit the wall. He didn't do all the happy, fun kind of cultural things. You didn't see him wearing like Chinese outfits and stuff like that.
yeah,
Throw back to Trudeau. But all of this to say is, I think it was a professional meeting. Maybe saying the words "New World Order" in China was a bit of a some red flags to some certain
yeah,
consistencies on the
yeah,
internet. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
A few
so,
tinfoil hats got polished.
but what I worry about is like for all of Scott Moe's like complaining about canola and things like this, Jason Kirby had some really interesting graphs in the Globe and Mail recently. Like, given all the problems we've had with China, like our dependency on them for canola has only increased.
Yeah,
Why
yeah, that was
aren't
actually what I was going to mention next. Is like we didn't seem to learn our lesson the last time.
Yeah, if you're really upset about this, like why aren't we diversifying? Now, I'm not an agricultural specialist, so I really want to like knock it over my skis here. My understanding is that a lot of the actual refining capability is in Asia and in particular in China, and so it kind of makes it hard to diversify. But this seems like a nation building project that maybe we could do. Like some kind of activity that way. So I don't
Yeah,
get it. Like, for all of your complaints about this, like, why aren't you yourselves taking action to diversify this market? And yeah, because I promise you in 2 years, we will almost certainly be having a conversation about, oh no, there's new tariffs on Canadian canola.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. My
that,
my
yeah,
only thing I would add is I know Anita Anand secured a canola agreement with Pakistan for the first time ever.
that's good.
So, diversifying markets. And there's also apparently a biodiesel plant that's gearing up in Alberta, I think, which is geared towards canola. So this is something, again, a domestic market for some of this crop, hopefully within a short period of time. So
Yeah, like every little bit helps, right? Like
yeah,
every little bit helps. Let's diversify. It is my understanding that, maybe we can talk about this after. Carney is going to be having a very global year if there's no election, that's also well over my skis. But if all of these trips happen, there's real opportunity to diversify, particularly if we are able to come with some kind of agreement with ASEAN or APAC or more Indo-Pacific countries. Yeah, let's diversify this. I'm not saying we have to abandon China, but
yeah.
like, good grief.
But don't make them don't make it so that they're the market you are most dependent on.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed. Because it's just or like reduce it. It's kind of like Canada's problem. Like the canola problem with China is kind of Canada's problem with the U.S. overall. Like even like and maybe we're getting to the end before we're finished the beginning, but like the fact is that Canadian trade with the U.S. has dropped by 10%. That is actually
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
All things considered, that's actually huge. And it's really symptomatic of where maybe things are going and headed. And it's not all good news because some of it's, of course, like the US is not buying Canadian stuff. But that's an important. Now, knowing you and having seen your Bluesky posts, the other issue that I think maybe you'd want to talk about is electric vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation a few months ago, and I posted that back up on the Blue Sky, and just was kind of like, there is a concern here, and we should just be aware of it. And it was kind of just interesting to me how many people were very blasé about it, and seeming to think that if I had concerns about Chinese EVs and the data they collect, then somehow I was in favor of Tesla collecting that same data as well. And I,
No,
it's like, no, no, one does not equal the other.
no, it's no to both actually.
Yeah,
No, I don't want to drive Tesla. So a couple of things about that particular agreement. The issue with EVs is challenging because right now the issue is I'm not convinced the automotive industry in Canada is going to survive. And I say
yeah,
this as, I can't do a podcast without mentioning that I'm from Oshawa. Oshawa today, the day we're recording, which is Friday, January 30th, laid
lost a
off.
shift.
Yeah, lost a shift, lost 1,200 workers, right?
Yeah,
When I first moved to Oshawa, it was 30,000 people worked at GM when my family moved to Oshawa in the 80s. And, I'm aging myself online, which is great. But and today there's about 3,000. So they've lost a full shift. They've lost the 1,200. It still does have a significant economic impact, but not perhaps the impact it would have 20, 30, 40 years ago.
yeah,
But that being said, it's still a thing. I'm not convinced the automotive manufacturing industry will survive so long as the Trump tariffs are there. It is
yeah,
absolutely
and
going to crush us.
yeah,
So, so the problem is the issue with the EVs from China was that they are, as we talked about, subsidized. That China is determined to dominate this industry. They are putting out a spectacular product. Like, by the way, none of my commentary is on like the quality of the cars. By all accounts, are actually amazing.
yeah. This is
And
what I hear.
yeah, and like the hope was that Canada could be like because one of the things that then Minister of Industry Francois Philippe Champagne would say was that you could make an EV in Canada from top to tail, from harvesting the minerals through to recycling the minerals once the car has lived its life.
Yeah,
And that was true. And but the fact is that now people are not buying them the way that perhaps we hoped. Secondly, they just haven't developed the technology in the way that we hoped. And the third thing is that the US is determined to crush every single aspect of automotive manufacturing in Canada.
yeah,
That changes the equation a bit, right? And so if there is the possibility, I think, of saving the automotive, so if China is willing to manufacture cars in Canada,
If.
Does that change some things? No, am I a huge fan of this idea? No, but are we probably losing that manufacturing? Yes. So I don't know. Like it kind of changes my view
Yeah.
of maybe from a year ago, but I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
The second thing I think that we have to consider is that the kind of cars that are coming over are not the kind of cars that are manufactured here presently.
No.
Right? Like they're smaller, they're tinier. I mean, they're gonna have to be approved through Transport Canada, and I don't know how that works at all. So I'll just stop talking there. But like these are not the kinds of cars that are manufactured here. So is it a different kind of product? Yes. Does it provide more choice? Yes. I don't know if I would drive. Kind of like I never used TikTok.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was just my own personal choice. I wasn't comfortable with it. And will I buy a Chinese vehicle? I kind of doubt it. I'm kind of hoping, we have this Korean deal right now, which is almost certainly linked to Korea trying to get Canada to buy Korean subs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Korea might do some automotive manufacturing. We'll see it. We'll see to the extent that it survives, and we'll probably know more by the end of the year. But does it make sense to maybe allow 70 to 80,000 cars into Canada of the kind of which are not manufactured in this country?
Maybe.
Yeah. Are they going to harvest data? Probably. Is it going to harvest more data than what's on your phone? Not really. I mean, if you're on TikTok complaining about Chinese surveillance,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. And in particular, there might be the possibility of, say, having an organization like the CSE come in and with the there's so many parallels here to the Huawei discussion that we had almost a decade ago, which is
Yeah.
that, do you do risk management or do you just ban it outright? Well, it made sense to ban it outright when we had a US administration that was willing to work with us. That is no longer the case. And I don't think that this is something that we should bet on for the near future. So
Yeah.
can we now do risk management? I think we can if we have like with the Huawei technology that was largely managed through what was called the CSE White Lab. That's where you get a bunch of people who are just like poking the crap out of the technology and trying to find as many problems and holes in it as possible and making sure that it's safe for the consumer. That could be something we do, right?
Yeah.
And we could actually ask the Chinese manufacturers to pay for that. And that's what Huawei was actually paying for CSE to poke holes in its technology. And so I said, like, it's like I was never really worried about the cyber threat. I was always much more worried about the geoeconomic. Like, is this something that we actually want China to dominate? China's dominating the car thing. Like, there's no question. The issue is, then we'd go with a ban with an administration that's consistently punching us in the neck every time it can, or do we go with a risk management strategy? That's what Carney's gone through. Am I happy with either option? No.
Yeah.
But I'm never happy, so it's perfect. Sorry, that was a long rant.
No, it's good, and it's good context to put all of this in because sometimes I think some of this stuff gets a little bit fragmented, and we're not necessarily seeing bigger pictures, and so I think this kind of a conversation just kind of puts some of those pieces all on the board at the same time.
So yeah, there's no to speak to Carney's Davos speech, like. It's a world of hard choices we're facing right now, and the best we can do is try to look out for our interests. This isn't about like having perfect security. It's about like how do we risk manage in the best way possible. And so I'd like to see us do more on the canola front. I'd like to see us do more on the EV front. But if we are going to have to stabilize relations with countries that we've had challenges with, and that includes China and of course India.
Yeah.
And India seems to be like really happy about that. This is probably the way we go forward.
Okay. Next topic in the grab bag is the U.S. and their unreliability as national security partner. The thing I wanted to ask most about, though, was there's been this idea that's been floating around for decades, but it's kind of becoming more of a pressing issue now, which is it time for Canada to stand up a foreign intelligence service? There was just an op-ed in the Globe a couple of weeks ago with Jody Thomas and I think it was Patrick Lennox, basically saying like, God, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna be expensive, but we kind of need to do this now. So I wanted just to get your take on whether whether now is the time.
So, the best time was yesterday. The second best time is today. That meme,
Yeah.
that's the meme. So yeah, I mean, I'll put my cards on the table. I'm fully on board for this.
Okay.
Now we need to mitigate expectations. There is really three options on the table. Option one is status quo. Hope for the best.
Yeah.
Second option is a full-on foreign human intelligence service, right? Where we do actually create a separate agency. There would probably be some kind of fight as to where that would go internally. Should it be built out of the GSRP program, out of global affairs, and answer to the Minister of Foreign Affairs? Should it be housed within, say, public safety or CSIS? Does it go to defense? So there's different places you could actually put it. Like there's a number of countries that actually have their foreign human intelligence service in their Department of Defense, and like Sweden is one,
Okay.
and France is another, right? So
Interesting. All
that's,
right.
yeah, it's common. So there's that model. I think the third model for Canada is the one that is most likely, which is actually you would grow it within the service, right? If you look at the CSIS Act, all you would have to do is remove one word, which is within Canada.
Right.
Right. So, the CSIS Act is supposed to, like, CSIS is supposed to look at threats within Canada. You just take out that word, you made a CIA. And there's a lot of danger there. So I want to be
Yeah.
clear. Now, to a certain extent, when you talk to national security officials about this, they'll say, look, CSIS is already doing, like, CSIS already has partnerships with foreign human intelligence organizations. And that doesn't just mean within the Five Eyes. I mean, it means around the world. And one of the concerns someone raised with me was like, well, actually, if you create a foreign human intelligence service and they're going to turn around and look at us and be like, who the hell are you? Who we've been talking to, right?
Yeah.
And I think from a cost perspective, you have a bunch of people who, for better or worse, are trained in how to do spycraft and things like that. And I think that's really important. And it would be much easier to grow.
Yeah.
And you do have a service that, with your kind of legal writing, is increasingly taking an extremely broad view of what it can do under Section 12 of the Act, right? Section 12 of the
Right.
Act is about threats to Canada, right? And so it has for a long time,
There's a
especially with
whole
the
thing on that in the Emergencies Act decision. So
decision.
yes,
Yeah, yeah. But it is taking a much more
expansive
active
view.
decision, right, in terms of what it can do under those provisions. And one day the courts might be unhappy with that. It has actually been unhappy with that in the past.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if that happens again. But to the point that anyway, so it's basically like it kind of would just be like adding a little bit to what it does now. Now there is a question. There's a couple of questions with that option.
Hmm.
Yes, it would be the cheaper option, but CSIS can barely manage what it has now.
Okay.
Right? Like
Yeah.
if Dan Rogers, the director of CSIS, gave a speech in November of this year, and terrorism's back in a big way, which is not something I'd necessarily seen coming, but given everything that's going on in the world, okay, it's actually
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Right? So they're kind of back in terrorism mode. That's an issue. The clearance process in this country is fundamentally broken. It takes so long to bring people into these organizations, and they often get jobs before they
Get cleared.
get cleared, right? So they drop out of the process. We miss them. So there's a number
Also
of,
a problem in the military as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also a problem, yeah. So it just takes so long. So we need to kind of speed these processes up while still maintaining certain levels of security, especially if we want to grow the military, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's a number of issues here. Also, we'd want to the lawyers will often also say like the kind of laws that apply to a domestic service are very different than those that apply to an international service, and you do not want to mix up those two things, right?
Yeah, yeah. And my further question would be, what's your oversight model? Because I would imagine that they would need to be somewhat different for your foreign and domestic operations as well.
I think so. I mean, to be fair, and Sarah can look at whatever. And
Sure.
yeah, and so they can look at like what the military say is doing abroad, so they would have that experience. So yeah, I mean, I actually, if anything, the good news is that I do think the review structure is there.
Okay.
Right? I do think the review structure is there. The other difficult challenge, though, of creating a foreign human intelligence service in this day and age is that with biometrics, with AI, with facial recognition, with all these things, it's almost impossible to run agents now in
Okay.
other countries, right? And
Yeah.
what we've seen Russia do is they're recruiting on social media, right? They're recruit like they'll target people and try to convince
Yeah.
them to do things that way, and especially youth, right? And
Yeah.
that's a big problem in Europe. And there was actually a Canadian who was arrested, I think, in Poland last year or the year before, and that kind of thing. So like this is the issue, because you can't get people in and out, like you're trying to recruit people domestically. And
Yeah.
so it's like we have to like kind of understand what our expectations are for a foreign human intelligence service, that it's almost inextricably linked to signals intelligence, which is of course like electronic stuff going through the databases, and
Yeah.
you're searching, not Canadian, so like we won't get into the act mandate, but basically
Yes.
your ability to search emails, search, listening to phone conversations, hack into people's stuff, that like there's a lot of blending of those two things together. And so
Yeah.
I think that like the ability to do foreign human intelligence is just so much more difficult. But what it would allow CSIS to do, if we did give them this power, is that I think what you could do is grow it very slowly. You would pick certain kinds of areas like economic, national security, issues relating to foreign interference, maybe not in our country, but in other countries that may be having some kind of effect. Like it would basically just give it a little bit of a bigger mandate in order to look at Canadian interests, because most of the foreign human intelligence that we get now is based on from the United States.
Yeah.
And what I worry about there, and I'll end it here, I promise, is that the U.S. intelligence community is basically tearing itself apart under
Well, and
Tulsi
it's
Gabbard,
in
and yeah,
completely compromised at this point.
to the extent that it's hard to know. But I mean, and officials are always like, "Oh, cooperation's fine. Day-to-day cooperation's great. It's still going." But if you read, I think there was an article recently. I think was it in the New York Times that Kash Patel took his Five Eyes meeting and wanted everyone to go jet skiing
Oh,
because he doesn't
oh,
like meetings.
yeah.
He wants to go
Yeah.
jet skiing and jumping off cliffs or something. So, Dan Rogers, thank you for your service. But the reality is like this is where we are, and so it's like like even like what I worry is that like even like, is the information that we're getting, if the intelligence community is having its own civil war, they're not paying attention to a lot of the stuff that we would like them to.
Yeah.
Trump is pulling them off files like foreign interference, that we actually need information on, that I don't know if we're working with the other Four Eyes in order to get it. That would be interesting. And then finally, even if they are giving us stuff, is it now being filtered through a Trumpian lens?
Yeah.
And so I think that this is a reason why we do need to act in some way, whether or not it is a full foreign human intelligence service, which I honestly doubt, or what I think is the more likely option, which is probably growing it out of CSIS.
Okay. All right.
Sorry for that
Interesting.
lengthy.
No, no,
I'm
it's very interesting because these are some of these are dimensions that I hadn't thought about in this. So it's really interesting to kind of get your perspective on that because you were on the inside at one point. So,
a long time ago,
but
long time ago, and everything else is gossip.
but yeah, and I've got one last topic I was going to bring up today, which is the whole thing with the treason debate
Mm,
in
yeah.
Alberta. You were quoted in piece just today about this doesn't meet the criminal code definition of treason. So I'm just kind of wondering, where are we left here? Where is there something that our national security apparatus can do about this, or do we kind of have to? I don't know. Like, I guess my biggest concern here is, we is that we would be sleepwalking into turning this into the Donbass of Canada.
Oh God. Um, yeah. So a couple of things. So the issue with treason is that it was written for the like war,
Yeah.
right? As it exists in the criminal code. I want to, again, I'm not an agricultural specialist. I'm not an automobile specialist. I'm not a, like, and I'm also not a lawyer. So I don't know what I am these days. I'm just hanging out on the podcast. But the issue is like the way, and I'm gonna say Craig Forsese and Leah West, their book on national security law, which you can probably get in any library, has a really good explainer of this.
Okay.
And what it basically says is that any basically that the laws are kind of based off of medieval texts. The last person to be executed in Canada was done so because they were a Canadian who fought for the Japanese, and they were executed under the 1351 Treason Act. So yeah, that was a throwback, to get
Yeah.
that guy executed. But that's the kind of like the basis of our laws, right? And so it's like, if you look at what the laws say, it's basically like aiding the enemy in wartime, passing on military secrets, actively fighting for like an enemy force, that kind of thing. So the treason law as it's written is inappropriate and almost certainly would not survive a charter challenge, right? It's just
Oh,
not,
yeah.
yeah.
Almost certainly not.
Like let's start with the execution part. It's not going to happen. We can't make fetch happen. No, there's other questions like around subversion, but CISA stopped doing subversion investigations in 1986 when it was discovered like the RCMP had these like insane subversion investigations throughout the Cold War, and like people were being put on lists because they had joined the Finnish Women's Knitting Society because Finns were
Yeah.
considered suspicious.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a whole
Bad history.
history there in terms of like the queer community and the
Oh,
RCMP surveillance and and
there's
all of
a
the
good
things
reason we don't
that
do subversion lightly, right?
yeah, all the reasons why CSIS was created in the first place.
So then it kind of comes down to the question of foreign interference. And I think what we're dealing with here is a case of foreign influence. So NSI Cop wrote, I believe, in it was either the 2019 and 2020 report. They have a really good report on foreign interference and what it is. And it was the first kind of concrete definition that they put out. And what was interesting about it was they differentiate between foreign influence and foreign interference, which is, if you look at, I'd always kind of use the CSIS Act language, which was clandestine foreign influence. So foreign
Yeah.
influence that is clandestine. That's what they mean by foreign interference.
Yeah.
Foreign influence is where, the Danes are like, hey, come and invest in Denmark, like putting out messages like that.
They schmooze and
Yeah.
they hire lobbyists
And all
and
those, exactly, right?
yeah.
And so it's like, it's not clandestine because it's being done in the open. Now, the Alberta Prosperity Project or whoever it is running the having these meetings, they're very open about it. Like this is
Yeah, oh,
not
they're
the first
bragging
time.
all over the right-wing podcasts.
This is not clandestine. So
Yeah.
if there is clandestine activity, so clandestine funding and things like that, then yeah, there might be a national security case, but there might also be breaking of Canadian election law. I'm not smart enough to know what that election law is, but around third parties and things like that. But if there's
Well,
that
and
kind
it's
of
also if
weapon
it's under
stuff,
provincial law, it's a lot laxer in Alberta than it is federally. So
that's interesting.
yeah,
You're gonna have to write about that, and I'm gonna have to read it. So it's that's the other thing too. So it's like kind of, and which is interesting because like Alberta actually had a whole inquiry into like foreign financing of environmental messages,
yes,
right?
yeah,
So I don't, like this is something they've actually looked at before. So yeah, it gets really tricky. There's a cliche in national security which is awful but lawful. A
yeah.
lot of this falls in the awful but lawful. So like I was quoted with Stuart Press, who I actually really like, and like he's saying the exact opposite, but I actually do very much understand where he's coming from. He's like, the word treason is being used as clarifying language in a moment of crisis. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
And you can see the rage of these people at this, who are kind of like throwing Canada in jeopardy at a time of where we're already dealing with a series of crises. So I do worry. I do worry about the use of the term. I do worry that it gets people upset. I do worry it's lawful, but I also understand it.
Yeah.
But just know that there are no criminal charges coming because it's not happening. This is
Yeah.
entirely a moral, ethical discussion, which I'm prepared to allow other people to have, and I will stick very nicely in my little national security box.
All right. Sounds good. I think that's going to do us for time, but thanks for doing this.
It's always
Always
fun.
appreciate it.
It's
And
good. I feel like I'm getting things off my chest.
well, I'm always happy to hear it.
Have you ever thought of
So
just getting a couch and just letting people just
we can
yell
do this.
for
We can
like
do
30
this.
minutes at the audience? Yeah. Thanks, audience. I'm sorry if this was more aggressive than it needed to be, but it's a lot happening.
Yeah, well, so much happening. But thanks for this, and we will do it again in, we'll say, a few weeks.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
And that's it for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. It's at journo_Dale on Twitter and journodale no underscore on Bluesky. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.